Welcome to the Ad Nauseam podcast, where classical gourmands everywhere can finally get their fill. Join us for a delectable discussion of Greco-Roman civilization stretching from the Minoans and Mycenaeans through the Renaissance and right down to the present. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here are your hosts, Dr. David Noe and Dr. Jeff Winkle.
Welcome, Ad Nauseam listeners, to episode 188. My name, as always, is Dr. David C. Noe, and I am here in the Vomitorium South, down in the bunker here with my good friend and fabulous caffeinated co-host, Dr. Jeffrey T. Winkle. How are you this morning, Jeff?
I'm good. I'm back from a week up in the northern wilds of Michigan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This wasn't Hocking Hills again?
It was not Hocking Hills. No,
right.
This is an annual pilgrimage that my family and I take up to a place just north of Manistee on the big Lake Michigan, and it was great.
Yeah, you're looking tanned.
Thank you.
Planned.
Yeah, planned?
Maybe. I mean, given the topic this morning.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a little uncanned, I would say.
A little uncanned?
Yeah, you're out there.
Yeah, I'm out there.
You living the life?
I'm living large. Yeah,
you ready to go back to work pretty soon here at the Grand Rapids Community College and fill some young minds?
Absolutely. It's after that annual week, I always start to kind of get the itch to get back in the classroom.
You just love to write a syllabus.
I
send an email.
I don't like sending emails, but I love writing syllabi.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Little known fact.
Yes.
Syllabus is both a second declension noun.
Yes.
Syllabus, syllabi, so you can use syllabize the plural.
Right.
And a fourth declension noun.
Or syllabus.
Yeah, you can say syllabuses is.
Right.
No problem.
Right. So either way is okay.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah, exactly. So unlike
yes,
I shouldn't get irritated when people say syllabi.
No, you shouldn't.
Right.
Or syllabuses.
But I can't get irritated when people say octopi.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that one. Right. Thank you for clearing that up. That's
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
How are you doing, Dave?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I have been lucubrating again.
You had the Latin jamboree.
Yes, we had the
right?
colloquium.
Yes.
It was fantastic. Thank you for asking about it. We had 11 fine scholars from such far-flung places as Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and somewhere in central Switzerland, California, a wide range of folks. We came together. We read. It was incredible.
No, this is, so the audience,
Yes.
this is people coming together actually in person.
Yes, we were in a house, in a residence.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, at a place called Quilted Crossings, owned by some friends of mine in Woodland, Michigan.
Sounds liminal.
Yeah, it's kind of,
Yeah.
right? It's a place put together in order to host quilting events. We went there, but we did not quilt.
There was no quilting happened?
Quilt. We tried to quilt while we were ahead, you might say. No, we read Latin together.
Yeah.
So Monday it was Virgil, Book 6, The Descent to the Underworld.
Oh, my favorite.
On Tuesday it was Augustine's De Magistro. Fascinating on the teacher. Wednesday we looked at Anselm's Proslogion.
Yeah.
I would say that's a philosophical work than which a better cannot be conceived.
Okay, wow.
See, that's a little bit of a meta reference there.
I'm hearing you,
All right.
yeah.
Thursday was Erasmus's Adagia. Oh, those are challenging.
Yeah?
But really interesting. And Friday, we wrapped it up with some letters of one Isaac Casaubon.
Man.
Including a pretty uncomfortable bit where the poor fellow described a long bout of diarrhea.
Now, you chose that on purpose.
No, I didn't.
You ended the week with the diarrhea.
I don't read all this stuff in advance. I go into it fresh.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So to speak, just like everybody else.
So did you have one of those like in your mind, like one of those oh no moments?
No.
This is what we're ending on?
No. I remember the fellow who translated that portion, my good friend Buddy, or Comace, he's listening. All week long, he's dropping to me ad nauseum ratio references as we're moving around, because we lived together during this time.
Yeah,
right?
right.
All the residents and my crack team of culinary professionals are cooking for it. It's so much fun. We took all our meals together. He's dropping ad nauseum references throughout the day, right?
Right.
Oh, I'd like some coffee, but can you leave out the brackish tang?
He dropped that?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
That's a super fan right there.
Yeah, we had a good time together.
Man, that sounds fantastic.
That's what we were doing. But I've also been burning some midnight oil recording the Calvin's Latin Bible, right? And I just finished up, just before you got here, my audio recording of Exodus 18 in Latin. Well, that's tough. And I finished 1 Samuel. Our team finished Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, Obadiah. After Exodus, we're moving on to Joshua and the book of Acts. So we're putting this together.
Excellent.
And if you, listener, you want to hear some Latin read, by me and you want to follow along the text, download Calvin's Latin Bible for Android or for iOS.
No,
Psalms are free.
Psalms are free.
That's right.
Now, as you mentioned, the books of the Bible there,
yes.
It sounds like you're kind of jumping around. So you said, I'm in Exodus. I thought, oh man, he's got a long way to go.
Oh yeah.
But so what's the
order of selection?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're trying to represent both Old and New Testaments alike.
Yeah.
But of course, the Old Testament is much larger.
Right.
And Calvin didn't comment on all books, so we don't have all books.
Gotcha.
So trying to represent both equally. And also picking off some low-hanging fruit, you might say. So Obadiah, 1 chapter. Jonah, 4 chapters.
Yes.
That kind of thing to try to get some momentum going.
Yeah.
But also tackling the bigger ones. I mean, Exodus is 40 chapters.
Yeah.
Genesis is done. That's 50 chapters. So many complicated Hebrew names.
Right.
How to read these in Latin? Yes. It's been a challenge. But anyway, we have to get on to today's topic.
Yes, we do.
Which is...
It is how the Greeks built cities.
How the Greeks built cities.
And we are basing this, we're planning kind of a two-parter, right? On this book by one R.E. Wycherly.
Wycherly?
Yes. And this goes back,
Wycherly?
Is it Wycherly?
I don't know.
Wycherly.
Which a woman? I don't remember.
What's the date on this book? What this goes back to?
So this book was first written, it was first released by W.W. Norton in 1962.
Yes.
1962. Okay. And we're going to get into it in just a minute. But in lieu of a kind of an opening bit,
yes,
I wanted to share with the listeners these two really fascinating stories. One I found on social media, courtesy of a fellow named Mike Kelly. And I'm just going to read through it, Jeff. And
okay.
You're totally fresh to this.
Yeah, I am.
I want you to tell me how these two strike you.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. In the fall of 2015, 26-year-old Chase Delwo was elk hunting with his brother in the Montana wilderness. Thick with brush and wind, the conditions made it easy to accidentally stumble upon wildlife. That's exactly what happened when Chase unknowingly got within a few feet of a sleeping grizzly bear.
Ouch. All right.
The ability to suppress panic. So this reminds me of many sight reading exams that I took in the past. And an article clipped from a magazine and passed along by his grandmother, hold that in mind, helped Chase Delwo, 26 years old, survive a grizzly bear mauling Saturday morning northwest of Chateau. He has a couple hundred stitches and staples in his head, some stitches on his face, a bruised and swollen left eye, and deep puncture wounds on his right leg. He also has an incredible story to tell of a tangle with a 350 to 400-pound male grizzly. It is a story that has a good ending and no villains. Now, I have to disagree with that.
The bear's the villain?
The bear is obviously the villain. Does a villain have to be immoral in order to be the villain? I don't know.
Yeah, if you're the cause of 200 stitches, you're a villain on some level. Yeah.
Chase Delwo and his brother Shane, 30, headed out Saturday morning to bow hunt for elk. The wind was blowing 30 to 40 miles per hour with snow and rain. I would have just gone home at that point.
Yeah, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, the brothers spotted an elk herd and decided to have Chase walk up a narrow creek bed, hoping he would drive the animals up to a ridge where Shane would wait. About 8 to 10 minutes in, I heard a bull, I guess it would be a bull elk, bugle, so I quickened my pace, Chase said. It wasn't until he was just 3 feet away that he realized he was approaching a bear that had been sleeping. The windy conditions meant the bear was as surprised as Delwo. Imagine the look on that bear's face.
Yeah. Goodness.
I didn't set my alarm for a stranger.
No.
Right. I had an arrow knocked, says Chase, and I put my bow up in front of me and took 2 or 3 steps back. He said, there wasn't any time to draw my bow back. The bear knocked Delwo off his feet and bit down on the top and back of his head. Quote, he let go, but he was still on top of me, roaring the loudest I have ever heard, Delwo said. The bear left, and Delwo managed to sit up. He came back and bit my lower right leg and gave it a pretty good shake and threw me a ways, he said. The bear came after him again. Then says Chase, I remembered an article that my grandmother gave me a long time ago that said large animals have bad gag reflexes. Delwo said, so I shoved my right arm down his throat. It worked. The bear left.
Oh, my goodness.
Delwo started to walk out, bloodied and disoriented, etc., etc. Took him to the hospital. Took about 20 minutes of driving, too fast, Chase said, and he was eventually fixed up. He's okay. His wife, Becca, when asked if he had advice for others being mauled by a bear Saturday, Chase and his wife, Becca, answered, in unison, carry bear spray.
So don't rely on the fist down the throat if you have to.
No, but Jeff, what does this remind you of?
I have no idea.
Oh, think Nemea. Think
the lion?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Hercules and the lion?
Right.
Okay.
How did he kill the lion with the impenetrable hide? Do you remember?
Well, he had to strangle it and break its neck.
Yeah, he shoved his fist straight down its throat.
Ah, my goodness. That's
and
right.
suffocated, asphyxiated the animal. Now, I had always thought, that's absurd, right? That's ridiculous. There's no way that could be true. But if the Nemean lion has an impenetrable hide, right? Yeah. The club won't work.
Right.
So Hercules shoved, I'm pantomiming this for Jeff and the rest of the audience.
Yeah, it's gruesome.
Shoved his fist right down the animal's gullet and killed it that way.
Man, yeah.
And so our friend Chase here with the elk.
Yes.
I mean, with the
bear.
The grizzly bear.
Yeah.
He's a modern-day Hercules.
He is a modern-day Hercules, right. Yeah, that's fantastic. I find almost equally as amazing is that his grandma read this article and thought, you know what? Chase would like this.
I'm going to send this to Chase. Equally surprising to me is that in that instant, that has to be inspiration. There's got to be some divine something going, something snapping in his synapses for his brain to surface that at that moment and say, while he is being eaten by a grizzly bear, hey, Grandma wrote this article sent me this article about how large animals have bad gag reflexes. I think I'll shove my fist down the bear's throat in order to escape. That all happens in an instant,
split second,
like a millisecond.
Yeah, I mean, astounding.
It is.
The clarity of thought in that moment, where you think for most people it would just be blind panic and horror.
And it worked. So Jeff, if you're ever attacked by a large mammal like a cow or something like that, bad gag reflexes.
Man, you know how many cow attacks I could have avoided?
You want to read the next one? You're going to get the theme here. This is from the Indian newspaper, The Independent.
Right.
This is recent, July 27, 2025.
All right. So this reads, an infant in the northern Indian state of Bihar reportedly bit a cobra to death. After it coiled around his hands. The 1-year-old boy, identified only by his first name, Govinda, bit the cobra while he was playing at his home in the small town of Bedia, near the Indo-Nepal border, according to local news reports. Quote, when we saw the snake in the child's hand, everyone rushed toward him. But in the meantime, he already bit the snake, killing it on the spot, the child's grandmother told local news. Maybe the grandmother had cued this kid in.
It's interesting, isn't it? I didn't notice his grandmother's in both stories.
It is.
Keep going, please.
Right. After biting the snake, the boy fainted and was rushed to a primary health center for initial treatment, after which he was taken to the town's hospital. Quote, the boy Govind Kumar was referred here yesterday by the primary health center close to his village, where he was rushed by family members after he fainted soon after chewing on the live snake. Hospital superintendent Duvakant Mishra told Indian Express. The venom's effects reportedly were mild, only knocking the boy unconscious, but not fatal.
So,
yes,
this is interesting, isn't it? I mean, why did I include this one?
Why are we to the Hydra now?
No, it's Hercules with the infants in the... Jeff, you got to go back to work, man.
Man, I don't have that clarity thought that Chase has. Right, of course. Hercules strangling the snakes in the crib.
That's right.
Right.
So this 1-year-old boy, Govind Kumar, the cobra coils around, he's 1 year old.
It's crazy.
Coils around his wrist.
Right.
And instead of the cobra biting him, the kid bites the cobra.
Yeah, that's incredible.
This is an astounding story.
Right. Now, what's also astounding is, how on earth did you stumble upon these two articles?
I don't remember.
You don't?
No. I think my grandma sent me an article. No, I'm not sure. But these two individuals are modern day Hercules.
Yes.
These are his labors, right? To kill the snakes and to strangle the Nemean lion.
Right.
Also, I don't know if anybody noticed, but earlier in the article it says identified only by his first name, Govinda, and then 3 paragraphs later, they give us his last name, Govind Kumar.
Right.
Timely treatment saved Govinda's life, Saurabh Kumar, a doctor of the government hospital, told the Times of India. The child's condition is currently stable and treatment is being administered under the supervision of doctors. The medical team is treating the child, providing continuous medication, and he is under observation.
Right.
Unbelievable. To bite a cobra. The kid barely has any teeth at 1 year old.
Right.
But that was enough to save his own life.
Yes.
And, I mean, the little fella, he fainted.
Yeah.
I thought he was pretty tough, biting the cobra until I read about him fainting.
And then you said, you were thinking, like, suck it up.
Come on, kid.
Suck it up, infant.
Yeah. Incredible.
That is amazing. Yes,
All
two
right.
modern day Heracles, and clearly, like myself,
Right.
both of these authors clearly missed the classical reference.
Yeah.
right.
It's like my big fat Greek wedding, right? Anything you find can be traced back to ancient Greece.
Ancient Greece.
There,
right.
we did it. All right.
And that, in some ways, is a nice tie-in
Okay.
to the topic of this episode.
Absolutely.
That's right. So what are we talking about, Dave?
We're going to talk about this wonderful book from 1962 called How the Greeks Built Cities. This is a W.W. Norton reprinted by Doubleday Anchor. First, we're going to answer the question, who was R.E. Wycherly? According to Wikipedia, Richard Ernest Wycherly, 1909 to 1986, so 77 years old, was a British classical archaeologist specializing in ancient Greece. So I suppose if we had Wycherly here, he could read his book in some of that great British accent.
Yes.
And that would enable us to compete with the big podcasts,
our numbers would explode.
Yeah, Wycherly attended Queen's College at the University of Cambridge, attaining a bachelor's degree in 1930, diploma in 1931, assistant lecturer for classics at the University of Manchester. He wrote a lot of things. What are some of his publications, Jeff?
He wrote a book called The Stones of Athens from Princeton University Press. He also wrote The Agora of Athens, The History, Shape, and Uses of an Ancient City Center.
So was that first volume The Stones Play Athens?
The Stones, what? The Stones of Athens.
Okay, sorry.
Are you making a gag? I'm missing what the Stones.
Boy, man, you need to have some more.
Are you talking about the Rolling
Yes,
Stones?
I am.
Okay, man, slow down.
All right, sorry. Keep going. The Agora of Athens and
then also the Athenian Agora Part 3.
All right.
All right, the trilogy.
Yes. So this guy was an expert in all things Athenian archaeology, the archaeology of the city of Athens. And this particular book, first recommended to me by Dr. Ken Bratt, I read this about, 5-6 years ago, and I was enthralled. It's just the right mix of depth, right? You get a lot of detail, like a Clancy novel, but you also get the big picture in lots of different places.
Yes.
So it's just a narrow little paperback. So let's start out, Jeff, with some first impressions that you have of the book.
Yes.
And then maybe some first impressions. The first time, I think it was 1991, the first time you saw a Greek city.
Sure. Yeah. No. I mean, I want to begin. We talked about this a bit on the show, and even in talking about prepping to talk about this book.
Right.
This fascinating question that I bring up in my classes a lot is what makes the Greeks so special?
Yeah.
Right. So why are so many firsts and landmarks of Western civilization coming out of this weird little rocky peninsula, right? And I think this book provides one very convincing answer to that.
Yes.
The way that they organized their cities,
Right.
and how many other kind of Greek innovations stem from that.
That's right.
Now, having said that,
Okay. So if I can summarize.
yes,
What makes the Greeks unique? Why are they still studied? You would say city planning.
city planning is a
Somewhat surprisingly, is right near the heart of that uniqueness.
It's a cornerstone, right?
Okay.
I mean, one of the things that's always fascinated me about the Greeks, or any of these remarkable centuries in history, like the 5th century BC,
Right.
or the 15th and 16th century in Italy, is how kind of one innovation follows another, right? They snowball over a kind of a comparatively short period of time. So we get this explosion of stuff. And so things like just the organization of a city, laying a city out logically and efficiently,
Right.
allows for the free flowing of so many other things.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, I'm at a glance, I'm convinced by that kind of argument. Now, having said that,
Yes.
my first impressions of Athens, and even it reminded of this when I was just there a month ago.
That's right.
And Rome too is they as cities are chaotic.
Chaos.
Right. I mean, now of course it would be wrong to compare modern Rome, modern Athens to ancient Athens.
No.
But even what's left of the ancient cities is labyrinthine and winding. It doesn't have kind of this logic, grid pattern that the later Hellenistic cities become famous for.
Right.
So.
You ever been to Houston?
I have never been to Houston.
Okay, I've only been to the Houston airport and on a terrifying ride from the Houston airport to the hotel that the airline put us up in.
Yeah.
Overnight because the flight was delayed.
Yeah.
So the fellow was doing literally 85 to get us to the little hotel. But why would I mention Houston? Well, apparently Houston is the largest U.S. city, not in terms of population, but total area.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently the streets are all laid out in this brilliant, extensive grid system. So, it is the ancient Greek city writ large. If we have any Houstonians, maybe they can let us know how it's working out for them.
Yeah.
Following the Hippodamian pattern.
Right. I would love to know that. Yes. Yeah.
My first impression of Athens was, of course, with you. It was in January of 2011, the first time I visited Athens, and I was taking pictures of everything.
Right. I remember.
I was taking pictures of the signs leading out of the airport because I thought, oh, this is incredible, right?
Yes.
It says Athens right there. This is the closest I've ever been to something, so significant in my life, my love of all things Greek.
Yes.
And then I get into the city, and it's all graffiti. And like my impression of Rome in 2004, Rome and Athens both seemed more like third world countries, which I was surprised by. Now, there's a lot of charm in a third world country. Don't get me wrong. I'm not, trying to take a colonializing kind of attitude, but my expectation was these are fantastic world cities. They'll be neat and orderly, like London, which I had visited, or Edinburgh or Washington, D.C. Not at all like that.
Right.
It's completely different.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Right. And I think it's important, in talking about the topic we're digging into to separate, the modern city from the ancient
That's right.
city. And even a city like Athens, if you look at photographs of the area of the Acropolis from the 1940s, it's empty.
Yes, that's right.
And so modern Athens is really an explosion of the last 60 years.
Absolutely. So then, Jeff, as we get started, I'd like to take us right to the preface, please, which is going to be on page 9. Right at the bottom, Wycherly writes, "The great glory of Greek architecture is the temple. The Greeks dedicated the finest fruits of their artistic genius and a large portion of their limited funds and resources to the gods. The development of the temple and of the Doric and Ionic orders, which find their perfect expression in the temple, quite rightly takes first place in the history of Greek architecture. The harmonies and refinements of the orders have an aesthetic value equal to that of the best sculpture. But although this beauty can still inspire, it is apt to seem a little remote. It may help to bring Greek architecture into closer contact with our own ways of thought if the structure and plan of the city, the treatment of which is apt to be relegated to the last chapter, are dealt with first." Now, Jeff, I wonder, is there any contemporary or modern analog to this sort of notion that the temple is the pinnacle of Greek beauty, and in some ways it's the pinnacle of the city?
Well, I mean, it reminds me of, it makes me think of those magnificent medieval cathedrals.
Exactly.
Right? And then also you hear about...
But is that a modern analog?
Well, I think that if you want to bring it closer to contemporary times, I think you hear things about colonial cities being built, and the idea is that the steeple of the church would be the highest point in the city and could be seen from every location. So the idea of that, maybe not the architecture of the church itself, but the idea that the belief system, the faith, is at the center of society, literally and figuratively.
Right. So the spire on the church is the highest point, like you say. Sometimes there's a bell, right?
Yeah.
So people can, by vision, find the place to worship, the place that's reaching or pointing to heaven, or by hearing, they can follow the bells to the place to worship.
Yeah.
When I visited London for the first time, St. Paul's Cathedral, designed by Christopher Wren, that has an overpowering kind of impression. It leaves an overpowering impression.
Indeed, right.
There's a great one in Liverpool, an Anglican cathedral there, which is one of the largest in the world.
Yeah.
Also just really overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I've never been to the National Cathedral in Washington.
Yeah, I have.
And if I did go there, I think it would have a kind of maybe this means I'm a modern, but wouldn't have much of an impact on me compared to Lincoln's Memorial. So is there a real contemporary analog, or do we just live in a post-religious society?
I mean, probably choice B.
Okay.
I mean, I think you can make too much of these kinds of things, but kind of the idea is that you can tell what's quote unquote being worshipped in a city by what's the tallest building in the city. And so if you use Manhattan as an example, a city that's built on a very strict grid pattern.
Yes.
Right. the argument would be, well, the god here clearly is Mammon, right? Not the god of the Christian Bible.
Yeah.
Right. I suppose there's some kind of broad, romantic or anti-romantic truth to that.
Okay.
There's also I remember the detail is that, like, in Philadelphia, for a long time, that there was a city ordinance that you could not build a building taller than the statue of William Penn.
Oh yeah.
On the top of the city hall, or
sure.
which is no longer true in Philadelphia too.
Well, in Athens, you can't build anything taller than the Acropolis.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, at least within a certain range from the Acropolis itself.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, even as you get out into the outer rings of Athens, you're not finding skyscrapers.
No, and the tall buildings elevation is low.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If we go on to page 11,
yeah.
Roman numeral 11 in the preface, Wycherly gives us kind of his brief for the book in that first open paragraph. Can you read that for us, please, Jeff?
Sure. Wycherly writes, I shall concentrate on the Hellenic city of the 6th, 5th, and 4th centuries, when politically and culturally it was at the highest level of its development. It will not be necessary to become deeply involved in the problems of origins and earlier history or to cover systematically the succeeding Hellenistic period, but I shall inevitably look both backwards and forwards from this viewpoint from time to time. Hellenic architecture began in a modest way early in the first millennium BC, but the traditions of the preceding Minoan age were not entirely lost. And at the other end of the scale, Hippodamian town planning did not bear its full fruit till Hellenistic times. Some typically Hellenic building types were architecturally immature in the 5th century. Indeed, only the temple had reached full maturity. And one has to pursue their history for a further couple of centuries to reach a suitable stopping point.
Fascinating.
Yeah. All right.
So this is what he's going to do. He's not going to go down into Hellenistic times. He's not going to go back all the way to the Minoans and Mycenaeans, though he's going to mention them a little bit.
Yes.
But he's really going to focus on 5th century.
He's heading off. I like this. He's heading off a lot of whataboutisms. Like,
Right.
Hey, Wycherly, why aren't you talking about this? I like the kind of the clear path of what he's covering and where he's going.
Yep. So chapter 1, growth of the Greek city. So where did this all start? So on page 2 of my edition, he begins, to go back to the beginning, classical Greek civilization crystallized around a nucleus provided by the tradition of an almost equally brilliant predecessor. In the middle of the 2nd millennium BC, about 1,000 years before the heyday of the Greek cities, Minoan culture was at its height in the Aegean area. Its center was in Crete. The peoples who ultimately became the Greeks infiltrated into the area in the course of the 2nd millennium. In the earlier phases of the process, they adopted the older culture in a modified form, and in time shifted the center of gravity of the Aegean world from Crete to Mycenae on the European mainland. So what do we have then? We've got a brief historical precedent.
Yep.
Now, when I've taught art and architecture to my students, we talk about Knossos
Yes.
and the labyrinth there. I've never been to Knossos. Have you?
I have once.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'd love to see it. But apparently, the Cretans used something, the Minoans used something called the inverted column, which you can actually find down at Woodland Mall, just a mile south of here. Did you know that?
No. Where they have
in the
Minoan
Woodland Mall, they have not Minoan columns, but inverted columns, which means the column is narrower at the base than at the top.
Yeah, it looks like a fat needle.
It's kind of like a bodybuilder who always skips leg day, right? He's all upper body.
Right.
He's got no legs. That's the inverted column. And, we've talked about this before, but apparently the column is supposed to remind you of a tree. So that when you walk into a setting with a lot of columns, you are in a beautiful sylvan place where there might dwell a deity.
Yes, exactly. That part of that Greek aesthetic that I love of that architecture and nature should flow together.
Correct.
Right. Now, can we talk about? I mean,
sure.
I thought this was
not Woodland Mall, but go ahead.
I know that Wycherly, he's saying that I'm gonna briefly mention the Minoans, but I'm moving on from there.
Right.
But if you look at the example of the so-called palace at Knossos, I mean, the palace at Knossos is kind of a functioning city of its own, right?
Correct.
And it's all built around a large open rectangular square.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think you can see in that
Sure.
the seeds of the later agora.
Yeah,
right?
like at Tiryns, when we visited Tiryns,
Yeah.
right up on the top, you get the megaron. It's a place for public gathering.
Yes.
Now, later in Athens, this developed into something much larger
Yes.
and much more free-flowing, you might say.
Right.
Not tightly controlled by a particular aristocratic family.
Right. And while we don't know a lot about what happened in that square at Knossos, I think it's fairly clear that it was multifunctional. It was a place for gathering, for speaking, for doing business, for religious rituals,
right?
Just like the later marketplace would do. I like Wycherly's point that agora, which is often translated as marketplace, is a really poor translation of that word. That word embraces so much more.
For sure.
Yep.
So at the bottom of that same page, he makes this nice connection between Minoans and Mycenaeans in the history of city planning. Quote, the Minoan city was concentrated around a center formed by the palace and a kind of agora, an open place for festal and possibly political gatherings. Mm-hmm. So you could put up your Christmas tree, and you could also, vote for the dog catcher.
Yes.
The Mycenaean town was appended to a fortified citadel.
Yes.
F. Trich characterizes Minoan and Hellenic cities as both alike centripetal, right? That is, heading toward the center. Everything is flowing toward a center point. In contrast with Oriental, that is, Near Eastern, Assyrian, Babylonian, Persian, etc.
Yes.
Cities which tend to be centrifugal. So everything is coming from the center and heading out in the opposite direction.
Yes.
With the emphasis on the walls, and he stresses and perhaps exaggerates the affinity between Minoan and Hellenic. So what are our cities like? Are they centripetal or centrifugal? I mean, you live much closer to downtown Grand Rapids than I do, but do you feel yourself drawn to downtown, or are you fleeing downtown? Is it centripetal or centrifugal?
I think that's a really good question, and one that I've never thought of before until I encountered this book this concept. I think that where I live, kind of up on a hill that kind of immediately as you kind of leave walking, biking, or driving, you're kind of heading down the slope into downtown.
Right.
If I had to answer that, I think I live close enough to downtown that I feel more drawn to the center rather than kind of flung out.
So you're centripetal.
Centripetal. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're headed toward the center, and a lot of us are fleeing the center. This is why there exist suburbs.
Yes.
And a lot of it depends, I guess, on the invention of the automobile. So we can drive great distances in a rather short amount of time.
Right.
And get all the things we need. If you have to walk to worship, if you have to walk to the store, you're going to be probably more centripetal.
Yes.
Headed toward the center of activity.
Right. I mean, this is an ongoing kind of cultural argument that I've encountered kind of reading things lately. And there's a lot of the people that mourn the lack of public community or public transit,
the bowling alone kind of idea.
Right. The idea that kind of the wish that American cities could be more like European cities, and that they're
I'm not one of those, as you know.
They're walkable. I'm more so than you are. I mean, I do like so even like a city like Rome. I think Athens less so. Rome, for all of its kind of wild labyrinthine tangle, is still a very walkable city.
Yes,
you can get to
that's true.
Walk across from one major site to the other.
That's true.
In a fairly short period of time.
It doesn't hurt though if it's August and 95 degrees that you can pop down into the metro.
Of course. Of course,
that's a nice thing.
It is, exactly. Yeah. So, well, let me ask you, kind of where we're down in the bunker of your abode, living here in this neighborhood. How do you feel?
It's pretty leafy, pretty suburban.
But I mean, it's centripetal or centrifugal?
Definitely centrifugal.
Yes.
Because I was raised in the country, right?
Right.
I'm enchanted by places like Montana and Wyoming, which have the lowest, population per square mile.
So the fewer people, the happier you are.
Well, maybe. If I can still talk to them, in this way, I don't have to actually see them.
Right.
That might be nice.
Right.
I'm definitely centrifugal.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who go the other direction.
Yeah.
So the bottom of page 5, he gives us a nice little preview of what the agora is and how it was the center of the town. Can you take us into that, Jeff?
Sure. The center of the lower town was the agora, for which marketplace is a very inadequate translation, and the rather frigid term civic center even worse. Marketplace.
Don't call it a civic center.
No, that's terrible. Oh man, I mean, I take Wycherly at his word here that he's encountered this. I've never encountered.
It's 1960s.
I guess so. Marketplace has obvious limitations, and civic center suggests a self-conscious attempt to make one carefully selected bit of the city a token and symbol of its greatness. It is not the intimate association with many familiar things which agora had for the Greek. Agora means the place where people get together. Primarily, it means gathering, but this, the normal Homeric use, became subordinate and exceptional in later authors.
So what is the agora?
The agora is it's the heartbeat here. So in the agora, Wycherly writes, the Greeks gathered together for political, commercial, or social business.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's it?
Yeah.
So do you have any suggested translations for agora?
No, I don't. Right? I mean, gathering place doesn't get at it.
That's
either.
pretty bad.
It
Folkmoot?
Oh man, maybe Folkmoot would get a little bit closer.
The Folkmoot site?
Right. I before we kind of leave the we're not leaving it behind, but to talk a little bit more about the Acropolis. One of the kind of the fascinating things I found from the book is how when you see the shift from Crete to the mainland, from the Minoans to the Mycenaeans. In Mycenaean towns, the highest point was associated it was religious, but also with the king. Right. The king and the palace would be up there, and as time goes on, we see a shift away where the Acropolis becomes primarily a religious center.
Correct.
And the leaders of the city are living elsewhere.
Right.
So that too, kind of making religion kind of almost the sole focal point of a city, rather than having kind of a multi-purpose use like an agora would.
Sure.
I think it's also a significant shift.
And Aristotle will say that this is connected to political systems and forms of government. And Wycherly, to his credit, surveys a lot of that literature, and we're going to get to it pretty soon. Mm-hmm. But first, on page 8, he gives us a little bit of a preview here of how temples would work in the Archaic period.
Yeah.
Because he's going to focus on 5th century Athens, but he's given us the background. So near the bottom of page 8, he says, the temples in the Archaic period were the only buildings in the Archaic city with any pretensions to architectural magnificence. Increasingly substantial, beautiful and costly materials were used for them. Unbaked brick and wood give way to stone. Ultimately, marble was used for the finest temples, after a period when its use was mainly confined to decorative sculpture. Mm-hmm. Stone was expensive to quarry and transport, and the use of fine and carefully worked stone on a large scale continued right through the Hellenic period to be restricted mainly to temples and the more important public buildings. Mm-hmm. For ordinary purposes, sun-dried brick on a stone or rubble foundation still sufficed. Baked brick was known but rarely used, perhaps again for reasons of economy. So moving from stone and baked brick to marble.
Yeah.
For only the temples. Everything else was still in a lower condition.
Yeah, I mean, that reminds me, I think the corollary of the medieval cathedral works very well there, where all the money and the time and the craftsmanship is put into that building.
Into a public building.
Right. And then you imagine the kind of, just the squalor of the huts that surround it.
Sure, right. You hear people say very derisively today that that's a McMansion. I don't know if you've heard that term.
Oh, I have, yeah.
But I guess it means that it's a large, nice house, but unfortunately, in the minds of the critics, it looks just like everybody else's house.
Yes.
I think that's the McMansion idea, or maybe it's not solidly and well built.
Yeah.
And while I can understand that criticism a little bit, the opposite extreme, I suppose, would be everyone's in a hovel, but the one building that we all share for a short amount of time is magnificent.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know which is the most appealing.
Right. And let's go back to our experience of Athens for a moment, right? A part of, archaeology of ancient residents is hampered by the fact that, the modern city it's right up to the edge.
It's built on top of it.
However, right off the Agora, there is some archaeological remains and foundations of houses, but that's all they are.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have the temple of the Hephaestion.
Right.
You have the Acropolis. The houses were not built to survive majestically 2,500 years.
No, we don't know what they look like because they were just slapped together.
Exactly.
So Wycherly says on page 9, the houses in which the growing population lived were mostly huddled together in irregular groups, between which the narrow streets insinuated themselves. So this is before Hippodamian town planning.
Right.
The main streets leading in from the gates and forming a continuation of the roads outside converged erratically upon the Agora. Mm-hmm. Insofar as the plan of the city had any recognizable structure, this was provided by the Agora and the streets radiating from it. But the radial form would not be very strongly marked, and when ultimately the whole was reduced to geometric plan by scientific planners, a different principle was adopted. So I guess you're supposed to think, Jeff, of a wagon wheel with the Agora as the hub,
Yeah.
But then the spokes, they don't come out in nice equal pie slices.
Right.
But they kind of just go all over the place based on the usage that people developed over time.
Exactly. I mean, there's a major distinction between a city that just grows organically,
right?
Than one. Wycherly talks a lot about this. Is that a lot of these grid pattern towns were towns that were destroyed by the Persians, right? Burned to the ground and say, okay, we've got a clean slate. Right. Let's do this differently. Or coming to populating or colonizing a completely empty area,
right,
and imposing a planned city on it is way different than a city like Rome or Athens, which grew organically over centuries.
Yep. Well, speaking about being huddled together in irregular groups, it's time for the ads.
All right.
This episode of Ad Nauseam is brought to you by Racial Coffee. Jeff, you like coffee?
I love coffee.
So do I. Did you have some this morning?
I did.
Was it from the 8?
It was from the 8.
Not from the 4?
No, not from the 4. I haven't been to my office in a while.
So when you were on vacation in the upper northern parts, how was the coffee scene?
It was okay.
Okay.
But the one that was provided in the, you've heard of the Cuisinart?
Cuisinart,
Cuisinart,
sure.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the only option.
That was it.
Site. Yeah, It was okay, but I missed my 8.
So you were happy to come home to the 8.
Oh, absolutely.
It makes coming off of vacation not so bad because
exactly.
great coffee awaits you.
Right. Yep. It was a smooth transition. How about you this morning? Come on.
Yeah, I brewed some up in the 4, and it was fantastic. It grinded in my barazza grinder.
Yep.
And the flavor, the aroma. Everything was fantastic. One touch simplicity. You got your bloom.
Yeah.
What happens in the bloom?
And then you have the off gassing of that horrible CO2.
Oh, I hate CO2.
Yeah, it's gone.
And then after that,
you got the brew.
You have the brew.
Yeah, and then
it's ready.
It's ready. That's it. Yep. It's very, very simple. So listeners, if you want one of these wonderful machines and see the great work that the great Mark Helwig has done.
That's right.
Do yourself a favor. Go to ratiocoffee.com. That's RATIO coffee.com / Ad Nauseam, of course.
Ad Nauseam, ADNAVSEAM.
Yep.
Check out what they have, and then there's a coupon code, isn't there, Jeff?
There is a coupon code. You can type this in. It's AN ratio 2025 all together. Yep, and that will get you $20 off your entire order.
That's incredible.
Yep.
So you're going to want to check that out in order to up your coffee game and get rid of that, I don't know, what is that awful... There's kind of this.
There's a term for this.
It's a wafting. I don't know what it's called. It's kind of like a brambly
Kerrang
bite.
Yeah,
we'll let you figure it out.
Yeah, you can figure that out. And this episode of Ad Nauseam is brought to you by Hackett Publishing. We love these guys. They've been with us since the very beginning of our humble little show here. They themselves have been around for 54 plus years. They've got their centers in Indianapolis, Indiana, Cambridge, Massachusetts. And like us, what we've been trying to do, they've been doing for so long, keeping that flame alive.
Yes, keeping it lit, the flame of the study of classics, great literature, Western civilization, but not just Western civilization.
Nope.
They also have South American studies. They have a great volume on the history of the samurai, Japanese culture. You name it, these folks are doing it. Contemporary philosophy, ancient philosophy, it's all there.
It's all there. So do yourself a favor, go to hackettpublishing.com and look at their wide selection. Just scroll through their massive catalog. If you're listening to this show, you probably have an interest in classical studies, and you will not be disappointed.
Could I go to Slackett Publishing?
Is that one of their competitors?
They mostly sell things that have to do with ropes.
They do, really?
Yeah, how to coil the rope, how to uncoil the rope.
Yeah.
Could I go to Slackett Publishing? Do you recommend that?
I suppose you could, but I mean, that was such a narrow focus.
I suppose.
I mean, maybe for your rope needs.
I have a lot of rope needs.
Okay, all right, yes. Well, I would recommend, if you're thinking a little bit broader, go to Hackett.
Okay. Hackett, is that correct?
Yep, publishing.com.
Yeah, and speaking of ancient philosophy, they are this fall coming out with a beautiful brand new edition of Aristotle's collected works.
Fantastic.
And we are going to give away a free set on this very podcast.
Ooh, so stay tuned for that.
So you're going to want to stay tuned. These are just gorgeous books and good reading too if it's Aristotle.
Absolutely.
So when they go to Hackett Publishing, they enter what coupon code, Jeffrey?
They enter this coupon code. It's AN ratio 2025.
Ratio.
So,
this is not the coffee place.
Sorry. It's AN.
I'm keeping you honest.
AN 2025.
And what will that get them?
That will get them two amazing things: 20% off your entire order and free shipping.
Check it out. This episode of Ad Nauseam is brought to you by our new sponsor, One Della Chelpka. Are you ready for art that truly speaks to your story? Meet Della, a Tucson-based oil painter who captures the people, places, and moments you cherish with breathtaking detail. She has showcased her work in multiple galleries, illustrated books, and is often commissioned for standout projects. See her current works for sale at her website, dellachelpka.art. That's DELLACHELPKA.ART. Find your inspiration. Visit dellachelpka.art. And Jeff, what is the coupon code?
Coupon code is Apelles.
What?
APELLES.
What is that?
And that is the name of the great artist, painter of antiquity.
Okay.
Yep.
And what will that get them if they use Apelles for their coupon code?
That will get them 10% off their entire order.
That's incredible. Check that out. All right, Jeff, so we're back in it. And before we move on to Chapter 2 and Greek town planning, there are some fascinating numbers and statistics that Wycherly gives us about population.
Yes.
Can you take us through those?
Yes, on the bottom of page 13, he writes, a word about population will be relevant to both old and new cities. The evidence on which attempts have been made to calculate the population of the city-states is hopelessly fragmentary and obscure. And there is the further difficulty of estimating what proportion lived in the urban center. But it is clear that most Greek cities were small by modern standards. The evidence for Athens is a little bit more plentiful than most. Attica may have had, in Pericles' time, 40,000 citizens and a total free population of about 150,000, of whom less than half lived in the city and its port. To these may probably be added over 20,000 aliens resident at Athens or Piraeus for purposes of trade, and over 100,000 slaves.
Wow.
Okay.
So we add up those numbers. We've got 150,000 free persons, men and women and children, 20,000 aliens, that's 170, and over 100,000 slaves, so 270,000 individuals. So that's pretty large.
Yes, I mean certainly for antiquity. I mean, I'm pulling these numbers out of anywhere, but
right.
that sounds maybe roughly the population of the greater Grand Rapids area if you
Yeah.
spread it out.
Well, what I've been told is that the city of Grand Rapids proper is a little over 100,000.
Okay, that's it. Okay.
And the greater metropolitan area, if you include, far-flung Jenison and Ada and Cascade, is getting on to 1 million.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Sheesh.
And let's face it, we have produced probably more long-lasting art and literature. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. So where are all these people going to live? Right? That's the question, really, that Wycherly is trying to answer. And how are they going to live?
Right.
But it's interesting to note that most of the people here were not urban dwellers.
Yes.
They lived in a rural setting.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, Christiana Dimitra told us this on one of our first visits. She's our Greek tour guide. Hopefully she's listening. The population of Greece as a whole, around 11 million. The population of Athens, 5 million.
Right. Almost half the
That's
population lives in the greater Athens area.
It is astounding.
Yeah.
It is really astounding.
Yeah, and it's amazing when you stand on the Acropolis on a clear day. You can see the edges of the city spreading out into the surrounding hills. Yep.
So we move on into Chapter 2, Greek town planning. So how did the Greeks actually plan their towns? And this takes us to page 19. And this will be the city of Miletus, which is in the region of Ionia. This is on the west coast of Turkey, modern-day Turkey, Asia Minor, Asia Minor. And this was the place from which Greeks traveled from Ionia to settle the rest of the Aegean.
That's right.
So Wycherly says, Miletus apparently played an important part. After sending out an incredible number of colonies, the mother city was destroyed by the Persians in 494. This was the Ionian Revolt, and refounded on modern lines after the defeat of the Persians in 479. And the most famous personality in Greek town planning, drum roll, Hippodamus, was a Milesian. So this is the guy, Hippodamus, who almost single-handedly, to use the great man theory, imposed his system of city planning on the rest of Greece.
Right. I gotta keep reading a little bit because one of my favorite stupid little details is coming. Wycherly writes that this Hippodamus is an elusive figure. Our most important source for him is Aristotle, from his Politics. We are told here that he had long hair. Right, so he was the flowing locks.
Hippodamus?
Yeah, Hippie-Damus, right? He was.
Did you say Hippie-Damus?
Hippie-Damus, right? He was using the oat milk to keep those locks shiny and
Garnier fructus.
Exactly right.
Keep going.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so he had long hair and held interesting political theories, but of his activities as a planner, merely that he discovered the method of dividing cities and cut up Piraeus. So we learned later that he was brought in, he was hired to organize the Piraeus.
Right.
Yeah.
Turn this civic center into a usable port, will you?
Yeah.
And so he got out his slide rule and his compass and his protractor, and he said something like, what if we just drew a straight line from here to there and people walked from point A to point B along a straight line?
Yeah.
Do they have to meander? No. Let's just redo it from scratch.
It's one of those things where Wycherly talks about this. He says, if you look at Near Eastern models, if you look at Egyptian models, you might see a kind of a whiff of this.
Yeah.
But he really kind of places that innovation in the hands of Hippodamus and the Greeks. It's really one of the things that really kind of set them apart. And it's also one of those things where if you step back and you think about it, it seems like one of those moments. Like, why wouldn't you do this? But it really started here.
Yep.
Now, as I was reading this too, one of the questions one of the reactions I had is this is great. This is efficient. I think, like I was saying at the top of the show, I think a lot of other innovations follow on the heels of this. But as in terms of going from town to town, it's a little sterile, right? In terms of like
if they're all the same.
If they're all the same, right? If it's not. I think a lot of people associate the ancient Athenians, the ancient Greeks with romanticism, right? It's great art, it's great beauty, but here let's just make them all like Jennison.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Jennison is Jeff's hometown.
It is my hometown,
more or less, and it's very grid-like. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I loved growing up there, but it's not. You're not kind of wandering these streets and marveling at it. You're not getting lost in the labyrinths of Jennison.
Well, things hit people differently at different times.
I suppose, yeah.
One of the amazing things about being an American, right, is it is so convenient to get from A to B almost all the time.
Right.
And one of the things that bothers us the most is the slightest delay.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of traffic. If there's a detour, there's a big pothole. This is a cause for war, practically.
Right.
When you visit Europe, you get to, walk all over some ancient city, but it's not convenient, really.
It's not convenient, right.
There are no direct lines. You get lost.
Right. I mean, there's trade-offs with everything, right?
Sure.
And one of the trade-offs of the efficiency of America is that there's a Denny's at every exit, right?
So that's a benefit or a trade-off?
To me, kind of a convenient but depressing sameness.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember my first visit to London and being frustrated by trying to get to an address in my rented vehicle.
Yeah.
Because the same street can change names 4 or 5 times as it goes through different districts. So at one point you're on, Chalkshead Gate. I just made that up.
Yes.
And 50 yards later you're on a street of an entirely different name.
Right.
And that's challenging.
It is.
Americans, we don't put up with that, really.
Right.
It's quite different for us.
I have another short, great story along those lines. So a number of years ago, my wife and I were flying into Rome, and we came in very, very late. And we had an Airbnb set up, and the cab dropped us off like 2 a.m. And I went and I could not find I found the address that gives you 38B.
Right.
And so I'm pressing the number 38. Nobody's answering. They're sleeping. I keep pressing it. So then I panicked. So I'm envisioning we're sleeping on the street tonight.
Yeah.
So I just started ringing other buzzers.
Oh, nice job.
And finally got some woman.
I'm sure you were very popular.
Oh, gosh. They finally got a woman who answered and spoke English.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I'm sorry. I said, I'm looking for 38B. And she paused. She said, have you tried the other 38B? And I looked down the list, and there indeed was on the other side of the pole
a second 38.
Another 38B.
Oh.
Right? Well, and she said it like, what do you didn't look for all the 38Bs?
Right.
You assumed there was one?
Right. How dare you?
Right.
There's going to be multiples.
Yeah.
That is crazy. So Hippodamus planned Piraeus for the Athenians in the middle of the 5th century, says Wycherly. He took part in the colonization of Thurii in South Italy, so he took the show on the road, planned that city. He may have planned Rhodes as well, the island of Rhodes. And so Wycherly moves on from this to look at some particular cities who took on this Hippodamian plan.
Yeah.
Rhodes, founded in 408, page 27, was compared admiringly, to a great theater. This, as we have seen, was a form which a seaside town might naturally tend to take. The simile may merely be suggested by the contours of the site and the outline of the city.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly a grid. The streets were rectangular, not radiating from the agora as the gangways of a theater from the orchestra.
Yeah. I mean, that strikes me as very, very Greek, kind of this combination of the practical and the aesthetic. That, yes, you're planning this around a kind of grid system, but you're also letting kind of the landscape and the contours of the landscape kind of dictate what goes where.
Oh, yeah. In the same way that the Shrine of Apollo, right, at Delphi, just built right into the mountainside.
Right, exactly.
Making use of the natural contours.
Yes.
Are we ready to move on out of Greek town planning into the other chapter, the third chapter, which is fortifications?
Yeah, and I think we could, let's touch upon this briefly.
Okay.
I found, and
this is perhaps the least interesting part of the book.
To me, it was. I mean, I thought one of the very interesting details is that if you look at the remnants of the walls of the city, the fortifications that surround the city, they strike the eye as much more haphazard.
Yes.
Right. They are not. There's not like a big rectangular wall. It's not like a Roman camp that you see later.
No,
right?
no.
Right. It's
with the decuman and the cardo.
Exactly. Right. The main cross streets. But you have the gates and the walls of the city. I thought was interesting. They're very much haphazard, but eventually they kind of link up with streets that will take you towards the center-ish of the town.
Yes. Can you tell us, Jeff, what Aristotle thought about fortifications? I believe this is the bottom of page 39, the first page of chapter 3 on that subject.
Yeah, so dealing with fortifications, Aristotle says, and again in his Politics, an acropolis is suitable for oligarchy and monarchy, level ground for democracy. For kings, oligarchs, and tyrants, the acropolis was enough. On occasion, it could provide protection against disaffection within the city, as well as danger without. Under democracy, strong protection was sought for the whole community. And in fact, separate fortification and armed occupation of the Acropolis was felt to be anti-democratic and a symbol of tyranny, or else of foreign domination. Strong walls were a sign of sturdy and defiant autonomy. When a city was defeated and surrendered its independence, the victors sometimes demanded the demolition of the outer walls and themselves placed a garrison in the Acropolis. So I thought that was really interesting.
It is.
I never thought about fortifications of the Acropolis as inherently symbolic of a particular kind of governing ethos.
Well, I think it's because of the notion that gravity, right, is very, very useful when it comes to warfare. So you always want to have gravity on your side.
True
You
enough.
want to be up at the top. You want to be the guy pouring out on others, boiling buckets of hot oil and rolling boulders down on them.
Exactly.
You don't want to be the victim of gravity, right? So for an oligarchy, a tyranny, a monarchy, it's up to the Acropolis, and it's not every man for himself, but the king or queen and a few of their closest associates.
Yes.
But that doesn't work for democracy. For the democracy, you got to have walls, because we're all going to be shoved inside, and then it's every man for himself.
Indeed. All right, Dave, you got anything else about fortifications you want to look at, or something from the book to
just a couple of comments here. I like this from 42. However important it was in the end, says Wycherly, the fortification wall was not a primary or essential element in the architectural form of the city. So I guess he's suggesting it's like an afterthought, pretty much. Historically, he continues, it was a late addition. Some towns remained unwalled in classical times. Sparta and Elis, for example. A city could be a complete Greek city without a wall. It could not be one without an agora or a gymnasium or a theater. Plato in the Laws makes a speaker say that it is best to leave the walls, quote, lying asleep in the earth. The swords of the citizens are the only true bulwark. Brave men should meet the enemy on the frontiers. Walls are a temptation to cowards to give ground without a fight. But most people, including Aristotle, took the common sense view that it was best even for brave men to have a fortified base of operations.
Right. I mean, earlier in the book, Wycherly talks about how one of the things that makes Greece, the geography of Greece is so interesting, is that the mountains and the valleys kind of naturally divided up, right? So there's a lot of kind of natural fortifications involved. I mean, it makes me think of like Mycenae, which was walled, but it has these canyons and higher mountains on either side that naturally protect it.
Absolutely.
So,
and within sight, in the case of Mycenae, of course, within sight of the bay there, down by Nafplio.
Right.
So you can see whoever's approaching.
Exactly.
Once again, gravity is our friend.
Is your friend.
Right.
Yes.
Have you ever, you live in the Heritage Hill area.
I do.
You not?
Yes, I do.
Up on the hill, as
up on
it were.
Up on the hill, yeah.
Kind of an elitist, are we? A little bit of an aristocrat?
I like to look down on people.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. Yeah.
The last home I owned before this one was in a kind of depression. It had been an old gravel quarry.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a nice house, but the water problems were extensive.
Kind of gathered it down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I would really like the next time, not for autocratic or gravity-based purposes.
But that would be a perk.
Okay. I don't have any large buckets of oil that I want to pour on anyone, but I would like to not have water running into my basement.
I understand.
So that's my eventual goal.
Gotcha. Right.
So before we wrap up, chapter 3 here on fortifications, it's the very last paragraph. Jeff, could you just give us some sense, because inquiring minds want to know, what were these walls built out of? What were they like? What was the construction?
Sure. Amongst the various styles and techniques, one thinks of quarry-faced or simply dressed limestone masonry, ashlar or trapezoidal, or more probably both, as typical of the noblest city and fortress walls of Greece. The men who built these walls were fine masons and engineers and architects and artists of a high order. The work shows how foreign to Greek ideas is our distinction between workman, craftsman, and artist. Techne embraces all these. The Greek artist's love of beauty and unerring sense of fitness and proportion and endless capacity for taking pains, seen at their best in the Parthenon or a Polycletan athlete, came into play in the shaping of a simple block and the building of a wall.
Fascinating.
I like that kind of, let's say, okay, at a glance it might look haphazard.
Right.
It's like, oh, we need these things for practical, but the same kind of artistry that Greeks poured into everything else is visible there too. Yep.
So we are such a practical people, at least as Americans. I know not everyone listening is American, and good for them, I would say. But a craftsman comes to your house, Jeff, or a tradesman.
Yes.
Let's say he's there, to fix your plumbing. If he were to say something like, well, Mr. Winkle, I can fix your toilet, but what I really want to do is I want to do so in a way that expresses my inner artist and doesn't just fix the toilet, but makes it so much better an expression of toilet than when I first arrived.
Yes.
So that when I leave here, I think I have elevated the entire aesthetic of your restroom. How would you respond to that?
If a plumber came to me and used those words, I would say, have at it, sir.
Would you really? Yeah, but if he's charging you by the hour,
it would be worth it just to see what he came up with.
Okay. Would you draw distinctions, though? I mean, if you're in the Heritage Hill, you probably have a real old-fashioned plaster. You may not have, drywall, sheetrock.
Right.
So you got to have stuff plastered.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
So, I mean, how does that work? You want a craftsman there,
you
right?
do, right? Exactly, right. So living where I come, one of the headaches is that there are all these rules and regulations, particularly the exterior of your house, right? And so, on
the inside, you can do whatever you want.
Within reason.
Okay.
But for a lot of those old school houses, you need old school craftsmanship to take care of it, and it's very expensive.
I'm sure it is.
Right, so the toilet is the least of my problems.
All right. So you're comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I wonder if there are any, aesthetic plumbers out there. Well, Jeff, that wraps it up for this episode, and we got to get out of here. Why?
Is there that I hear banging on the
door?
door
There's a lot
here.
of banging. There are a number of groups trying to get in here. There's the APA.
The American Philological Association?
No, the American Planning Association. The largest and most well-known professional organization for urban planners in the U.S. It has a network of state and regional chapters.
Yeah.
Don't you belong?
I do not belong.
Okay.
Do they feel slighted that we haven't mentioned them yet?
They don't like it.
Okay.
We're privileging, you might say, Greek city planning Hippodamus over them.
Gotcha.
You got the American Institute of Certified Planners, the AICP.
Yes.
Which is not to be confused with
what? No.
The next one.
Oh, yes, with the ACSP.
You're already confused.
With the Association of Collegiate Schools of Planning. Yeah. Oh, man, these guys, I'm sure there's lots of mudslinging between these guys.
Well, we should probably yield and let them in so they can use the space to hold their meetings and get things done. But before we go, Jeff, we have a little bit of housekeeping to take care of, don't we?
Of course. Always people to thank. Thanks to Mishka, our wonderful engineer. Thanks to those great musicians, Scott Vincent and Ken Tamplin, who generously let us use their music that you hear throughout the
Jeff
episode.
Sheets, don't forget.
Oh, yeah, Jeff
He's
Sheets.
given us the Thrill Seeker intro and outro music. Kansas City guitarist.
Right. And
Disc Dogger extraordinaire.
Yep. And before we go to Dave, if people want to learn some Greek and Latin, you can help them.
Yes, they need to go to latinperdiem.com. We are coming up on the 10th year anniversary of this little project.
Wow.
Where I started whiteboarding Greek and Latin lessons on the YouTubes. something like 2,300 free lessons now. Man. And I can't believe it's been 10 years. The podcast is 5 years old.
Yes.
And LPD is 10 years old. So use this coupon code 10plus, 10PLUS, and you will get 10% off anything on the site. Coming up on the 10th year anniversary, long about September 1, we are going to run an incredible deal with a huge discount. So if you're planning ahead, listener, and you're thinking, I want to study some Greek and Latin this fall, you're going to want to get that coupon code, which we will announce in coming episodes.
Excellent.
Because we're never going to give away the farm like we're about to.
Wow.
Never going to do that again.
All right. Stay tuned. Yeah.
So, Jeff, if they want to subscribe, they want to leave a review, maybe on Spotify or Apple, that would help us so much. What should they do?
Well, again, engage with the format that you're listening on. Click those stars, write us a review. That always drives more traffic in our direction. If you want to get in touch with us, if you got an idea, you got a question, you want a shout out, you can write to Dave. It's dave@adnauseam.com. Don't forget the V.
Or write to jeff@adnauseam.com. Don't forget the V. We got a really nice follow-up from our friend Tom.
We did.
Not the Australian Tom.
But, you mean our nemesis?
No, the nice one.
The nice Tom.
The nice one who's somewhere in the UK.
Okay.
And this Tom, he gave us some constructive criticism, and it was a very gracious reply. So we tried to implement it post-haste.
Yes.
And so thanks to everyone out there who is listening, who is taking in the classics.
And keeping them down.
Yes. What's on the menu for next week?
We're going to finish up this book.
Finish it up.
So we looked at chapters 1 through 3 as kind of a setup, and
That's
then we're
right.
going to tackle the last 5 chapters.
Yeah,
in the
4
next
through
episode.
8, and then we'll put this one to rest. And
Indeed.
Got some other things coming down the line, which should be really interesting. We're finally going to get into Plato.
Yeah, I can't believe it's taking us this long.
Well, you don't want to miss that one.
Yep. And Dave, I believe you have our gustatory parting shot?
Yeah, I do, but you know me, Jeff.
Oh, no.
I got to do a little bit of a setup. It's tiny. It's tiny.
All right. Yeah, let's
Have
hear
you
it.
heard of the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy?
I have not.
Well, you have now.
Okay.
So it says that an infinite regress is a philosophical concept describing a series of entities, where each entity in the series depends upon its predecessor.
Okay.
And this dependency goes on indefinitely without a first or ultimate member in the list.
Okay.
So, listener, keep that in mind. Infinite regress.
Gotcha.
You got it? Okay, now here's the gustatory parting shot from someone named Stephen R. Gundry. And the work is called The Plant Paradox: The Hidden Dangers in Healthy Foods That Cause Disease and Weight Gain. And, says Gundry, quote, "You are what the thing you are eating ate."
So the infinite regress.
I'm a little concerned about this.
No, me too.
If I am the thing that I am eating ate, then what is the thing that I am eating? It's the thing that it is what it is eating ate, and all the way back.
It goes on. The mind boggles.
This is troubling.
Yes.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.